Okay, we are live. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to another version of the workshops organized by Metis under the Build Hour. I'm Victor Munoz, developer advocate at Metis, and today I have the pleasure of hosting this workshop with Josh, who will show us how to use Indexer. And either going forward, we are going to be connecting this to a front end, right? So that end users can interact with it. Is that correct, Josh?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, we're going to be going over how to make a very simple indexer on Metis and then hooking it up, getting it to display on the front end.
Awesome. Sounds exciting. I think I haven't seen this kind of material before on the web, so I'm pretty sure that the people that are finding this, can make very good use of this material. So, Josh, just so that people can get like familiarized with what you guys are doing, why don't you briefly introduce ENVIO and at high level what we will be covering during this workshop?
Yeah, sure. So ENVIO is kind of a general data solution for EVM chains. Our main product is HyperIndex, which is a super easy to use, very, very fast indexer. And then we also have HyperSync, which is just a data retrieval API for chains, and then HyperRPC, which is a JSON RPC standard. But today we're going to be going over using HyperIndex to index some smart contracts on Metis.
Right. So we are going to be checking out some smart contracts deployed on our chain, right? That's exciting for me, of course. And yeah, I just want us to move forward and start with the action here. So would you mind sharing your screen so that we can get started with the workshop?
Yes, sir. All right, can you see it? All good?
Yes, I see something that I can add to the stage here. All right. And before we get
Fantastic.
started, I just wanted to say hi once again to the people that are watching us. You guys can leave your comments on the comment section, of course, of the streaming, and we will be taking care of answering all of your questions about MBO, about the different things that we will be covering today during the workshop. So feel free to just ask whatever it is on your mind, or if you would like to see something else in the future, also let us know. Okay. So just uh, let's do it.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Victor. So again, yeah, we're going to be using NVIO's hyperindex to index some Metis smart contracts. And so I found this smart contract, the token on Metis. It's the token ERC20 token for the Hummus exchange. And you can see here it's got 11,000 transactions, so plenty of data to index. And if we look at the contract, we can see the events that we're going to be looking for. So this transfer event, approval, minter changed. Okay. And before I jump into the code, just a brief high level overview of what we're doing. So first we're gonna write our indexer, then we're gonna deploy that indexer to production using NVIO's hosted service. Then we're gonna use create React app to make a very, very simple front end to fetch data from that indexer that we just deployed. And all right, let's get into it. So starting off, you're just gonna wanna go to the docs, getting started. We'll note some prerequisites, Node, PNPM, Docker Desktop, all pretty common, and then you can install NVIO, this npm install -g NVIO. And also, just to note, I already have Docker running, and we would be doing the no code quick start, which is a easy way to get an indexer running off the ground without having to write any code. So let's go. So you can see here I'm in an empty repository. And I'll go ahead and open that up in VS Code. And the first thing we're going to want to do is make our indexer folder. So there we go. And the first thing we need is the ABI file of the contract that we want to index. So we can go back over to the Block Explorer, scroll down to the ABI, and just copy it there. The ABI is basically the interface that tells other applications how to interact with the contract. So now that we have the ABI, we can go ahead, cd into indexer, and run our NVIO init command, which starts the CLI process for making an indexer. So let's go ahead and name it hummus token. Do it in this folder. We can choose JavaScript, TypeScript, Rescript. I like TypeScript though. We're going to be doing a contract import. Use a local ABI, and the path is ABI.json. And then here you can select which contracts we want to index or start with. And for the purpose of this example, I'm just going to use the transfer just for simplicity. And which chain, we'll go Metis. The name is hum. And the address, go back to the block explorer and just grab that. And we are done. So now it's going to go through a whole bunch of code generation, do a lot of heavy lifting for you, do a lot of optimizations based on the ABI and all that, and then we can get into some of the code that it generated. Okay, so it's all done. And I'm going to open the only files that you need to modify when you're making an ENVIO indexer. So just these three files, the only ones you have to worry about. We'll start with the schema. The schema is where you define how the data you want to query looks like in GraphQL. So if you remember, we chose to index the transfer event. We have this transfer entity here, so we can make queries for this later. Then the config is essentially how where this indexer looks for these events. So we are at ID for Metis chain, start at block 0, and then we look at the hum contract at this address, and then we specify the events that we want to look for from that address. So we just have the transfer event, but we could add other ones underneath if we want. And how this works is essentially saying, okay, look at this chain, look at this address, and anytime this transfer event gets emitted, send all the data from that event to this source event handler.ts file to handle the data and sort it into these entities. So we can check out event handlers now. And this is all pre-generated, and the data from the event gets sent to this function where our logic is to sort it however we want. And before we get into this, let's just start by running it to see what data we have so far. Maybe try again, or maybe stop it. There we go. There we go. So it's creating a bunch of Docker containers in the background right now and sending a bunch of, once it sets everything up, sends a bunch of queries to the Metis chain to get a bunch of data. And we can see it. We have a nice little CLI that pops up when it starts generating those queries and returning it and handling all these events. So you can see right now it's loading. And it's starting processing events, and it's already processed 2,000 blocks worth of events, 3,000 now, and it's just going to keep going. So we'll let that run in the background for a second and start exploring our data. This tab that it popped up from this link down here is just a local explorer to explore this local database that we just started up. And you can see on the left here are all the events, all the entities in our GraphQL table that we can check out. So let's take a look at the transfer aggregate entity. So we can, this query here will just basically get a count of all the transfers that we have in the database so far. So 50,000 transfers, and that's only 14% of the way through the chain. And as we query more data, it's just going to keep going up. But that's an example of a query you can make. Another example query, we can look at the largest transfers that we've indexed so far. So you can say ordered by amount, descending, and we can get the top 5 transfer events. And from this, we want to return who's it from, who's it to, and the amount. So here's another example. from 0 address. This is probably the initial mint, transferring that amount. But that's just an example of some queries, and we already have some transfer data. Okay, let's go ahead and stop that now and make some edits to this. So start in the schema, and let's say we want to keep track of the traders, so who are calling these transfer events. So we'll define a new type, call it trader. It's got to have an ID, that's the primary key, and for the ID we'll just be using the address. And then we keep track of the number of transfers that each address makes. And we'll define a trader as the address in the from parameter on any transfer event. So okay, now that we've modified our schema, then next we would modify the config, but actually in this case, don't have to make any changes to the config. We're not adding any new events. We're not adding any new contracts that we're indexing. So before we make changes to the logic in event handler, we have to run ENVIO code gen real quick. And what that does is it makes modifications to this generated folder and gives us a ton of useful functions for working with this new trader entity that we just created. So now in event handler, we can go ahead and import our trader entity. And first thing we're going to do is just create an initial trader. This isn't required, but you'll see in a second that it's a nice pattern and very useful. This is kind of it's kind of the first trader in the database, or the default trader, if you will. And it doesn't really matter what these values are set to for now. And then we come into the loader and the handler functions. So if you remember, I said the handler is where we put all the logic of how to sort the data from the event into our schema. Well, before we modify the handler, we have to first modify the loader. And the loader is an optimization that basically says, okay, anytime this event happens, load these entities, get ready to use these entities. So in this case, we want to get ready for the trader. So trader load, and then we loading the trader at the event parameter, the from address. Because remember we said a trader is somebody who initiates a transfer function and then thus emitting being the from address in a transfer event. And then we can modify the handler. So we'll just go down here. And this is where we're going to put our trader logic. And first things first, let's see if a trader at the trader address already exists. So we'll just set the trader address to the parameter from the event. And then we're going to try to load the trader from our database. Now here, one of two things can happen. Either a trader with this address is already in our database. So in that case, we can just increment the number of transfers by 1. But the other case is if this is the first trade by this trader. In that case, we'll have to fall back to our initial trader object that we made earlier. Okay, so now current trader we know has all the fields populated that we need. Now we have to update current trader with the new information and then save it back to the database. So we can make updated trader, which is a trader entity, and the ID, remember, is the trader's address, and the number of transfers, we're just incrementing the current trader's number of transfers by 1. So current trader dot num transfers plus 1. Okay, so now we have the updated trader. All we have to do is save it back to the database. Okay, and that's it. Should be good. Added to our handler function. Now let's go ahead and rerun the indexer and
So
check out this new trader entity. Yeah, please.
that's what I wanted to um, kind of ask if we could do like a summary so far what we have done.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So far we have so far in this stage we've ran NVO init, and then we ran NVO dev just to check out some of the initial data that we would get after that code gen. And then we, let's see, then we made changes to schema and event handler to add the trader entity, added the trader entity in schema and updated the logic in event handler to populate this new entity. And now we just ran NVO dev again to restart the indexer locally to resync all the data and sort it using this new logic. So in the screen, we should see a new entity here that wasn't there before that we can now query for.
Got it. Super clear.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so you see right here on the left, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. See here on the left, this trader entity that wasn't there before. This is what we just created. Um, so for example, go back to the aggregate, which is just count how many traders we have so far. Okay, so 3,000 traders, we're about 28% of the way through the chain. More realistic query that you might want to do is say, get the top 5 most active traders. So let's make that query right now. So we're going to order by number of transfers, descending, limit, just say 5, and return the ID, which is the address of the trader, and the number of transfers. Make that query, and boom, there you go. So far, let's say 46% way through the chain, this is the most active address, that being the address that is called the transfer function the most, the address that's the from address in the transfer event so far.
So
And
just to
there's,
clarify,
mhm.
this total number of transfers is 42,000 or almost 43,000 right now. So these are like the total trades that have been performed by that wallet address on the Humus exchange, like in what period of time?
um, since oh okay, so we're done syncing already. So over the entire duration of the chain, this address here has called the transfer function on the hummus token 42,000 times.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's pretty much step one. So we've modified our indexer to query for some custom data on the hummus token contract. Cool,
So
which is great.
just before we progress, also another question, which I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people might be wondering about, like what are the kind of most common queries that you would do in a realistic
Mm-hmm.
scenario for this?
It's a good question. Well, there's like kind of two types, I guess you would say, of indexers
Mhm.
that people want to make. Either people want to make indexers to support their front end, or people want to make indexers to do some type of data analysis. If you're going to make an indexer to support a front end, usually they're going to be like making queries for specific user information. So like I go to the front end and then it makes a query based on my address to get some data. So that'd be something like I could probably, yeah. So that'd be kind of something like this. So say we wanted to query for just this user's number of transfers, and say where ID equals that, and then shows this up. So this is like kind of a query that you would make um, on your front end, which we can show now actually if you would like. Yeah, so that first step is done. Um, and then how do we get this into a front end is the next question, next step. But before we do that, since we're just running this indexer locally, when I stop my machine, the indexer stops, can't query any more data. So we're gonna actually deploy this indexer to full production using ENVIO's hosted service. And the way we do that is really, really nice. All you have to do is create a GitHub repository. And whenever you make a push to the GitHub repository, we do all the hard work, packaging your indexer, running it, maintaining it, scaling it, all that. So I'll show you how to do all this now. So first thing, we're going to make a GitHub repository. So let's name this Metis Workshop Live. Okay, just copy this in. Going to go back to that root directory, paste that, and just add everything to the repository. Okay, and if we come back here, we should see our fresh repository with our indexer in it. Awesome. And then, so to deploy this, go back to the envio.dev home screen, and on the upper right-hand corner here, you see the hosted service button. I'm already logged in, but it'll prompt you to log in through GitHub. It's very easy. And then this big add new indexer button. So we click on that, then connect to a GitHub repository. These three here are just previous indexers that have already deployed, but at the bottom, add new repository, we hit connect. I made the repository in my name, so I'll go configure. Let's just log in. And then I have to give ENVIO deployments permission only on select repositories for this repository that I just made. Metis Workshop Live, save. Okay, sweet, looks like it updated. Maybe refresh. Sweet, there we go. So this just showed up. This one here a second ago. This is the repository we just connected. The connect, now this is where we're setting up the indexer. So naming it, zoom in a little bit, Metis Workshop Live. The directory for this is in the indexer directory. So we'll say indexer, and the config file is in the indexer config.yaml. And the git release branch, you can configure this to build and deploy on pushes to a certain branch. By default, it's just ENVIO. And yeah, this should all be good. Go connect. And then so now what I'm going to have to do is create the ENVIO branch. So we're on this new branch ENVIO, and then just push that branch to GitHub. So now that GitHub push went through, then our hosted service picks that up and starts running the code generation and the Dockerizing and all of that complicated stuff for us. So we just have to wait for this. In the meantime, though, we can go ahead and move on to actually creating the front end for this. So this step is in progress, done, and we're going to go ahead and make the front end now. So back to our repository, we're going to use create React app just to make a very simple app. So npx create React app, and we'll just name it front end. And actually, while this is all loading, now's a good time for any questions anybody has or any clarifications I can make or anything like that.
Yeah, sure. While this loads, just to make a recap, because we might have some people wondering, uh,
Mm-hmm.
how will be like the structure here? What is like the back end? What is the front end? What is the user expected to see?
Okay, yeah, yeah, sure. So I guess the back end in this sense is just this indexer folder, and yeah, the front end will just be this React app that I'm, I'll show in a second. I'm not sure if that is a good satisfactory answer or not, but we like you don't have to worry about like uh, creating your own database or anything like that. Like ENVIO does all the hosting on the hosted service, so you don't even have to think about kind of all of this database stuff. Once this finishes building, we just give you an endpoint, and all you have to do is paste that endpoint into your front end, and then that's it.
Simple as that. Just an endpoint that you connect with your front end, and you guys take care of everything related to the, let's say, back end and the database and everything, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Very simple, very easy.
Awesome. And if people want to start making use of this, you guys actually can check out one of our previous workshops that we actually did with Josh, in which we actually show, I think that we also show how to create an account and how to get started, right?
Yeah,
So we have previous videos that you can check out. I would 100% uh, recommend you to subscribe not only to this channel, but also to the channel that you guys have at ENVIO, because there are more, other workshops as well there with, I think that other blockchains, but that's fine. Uh, so yeah, I don't know if you want to add something to this, Josh.
yeah, no, definitely. And also, like, please join our Discord, chat to us. Any troubles you run into, any suggestions, any concerns. We're super active in Discord and love hearing user feedback. Okay, and looks like this actually finished building. So what that did is generated everything in this front end folder. Um, I'll also have to preface this, I'm no front end expert, so this is a little foreign to me as well, but it's still very, very simple to do. So we have this front end folder, we can go ahead and cd into that. And then to start it up, we can say npm start and just take a look at what it generated for us, what create React app generated for us. Okay, so this is just the basic front end. You can edit source app.js and save and reload. So we'll go ahead and do that. So here's app.js. And let's see, where are we going to want to put our data? Let's say right here. Save that and go back. And nice, it updated. So in the end, we're just going to have some data just appear right here on the home screen for you. Okay, so the next part, I'm going to make a new file. We'll call it datafetcher.js. And we're going to be using the fetch API from Create React App. Um, Now, this next part, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm no React expert. And even if I did, it would be kind of a while typing this out, but it's all very boilerplate code. And I'll walk you through it as well.
Absolutely. If you have to use a boilerplate, just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No shame.
No, I probably should. I should, but I'm shamefully, yeah, not a veteran of React. So hopefully that was quick enough. People didn't see, not too much shame. But this is the boilerplate that you'll have. So there's this function data fetcher. Paste your query in here, and then it uses the fetch API to make the query to the endpoint that we're going to put right here, and then returns it to app.js. And so we're going to have to hook it up to app.js. So we're going to go import data fetcher, which is what we just made from that file. And then we're going to plug that in right here, data fetcher. And now we should see an error or something or nothing. Okay, good. Yeah. So we haven't defined the endpoint or query yet, but it's good we're seeing something. Yeah. So at this point, we can just paste the endpoint in here, the query here, and we'll see if the indexer is finished building. Okay, it is not yet. That's normal. It usually takes 5 to 10 minutes. But I did come up with a contingency plan. I uploaded the same exact indexer a little bit before this. So if you just close your eyes, pretend like we fast forwarded in time, and look at that, it's finished building. Wow. But so this was what it looks like when it's finished building, and it'll give you this production query endpoint right here. And this is all you need, the only thing you need in your front end. So we're going to go ahead and copy that and paste that right here where it says endpoint here in fetch. And then we can decide what query we want to get. And go back to the API Explorer that we had looking at earlier. You can see this query that we made earlier and just copy that whole thing there. And then hopefully we'll see this data on our front end. And copy that there, save, and then there it is. Look at that, data from your Metis smart contract into an indexer into your front end. Maybe clean that up just a little bit. I wish I knew more about front ends to make it look a little bit better, but there you go. There is your smart contract data on your front end.
Got it. So
Um,
essentially, what we did was to put the information that we had in our, in our database. We transferred that to a front end, and from here, I guess that there are multiple things that a developer could do with it. Like you mentioned before, we can do things with data analytics, and something that I'm particularly very interested in is user behavior, right? Like how are people, if you want to really understand, for instance, this is a contract for Humus, right? Which is one of the DEXs, decentralized exchanges on Metis.
yes.
If you want to learn what are people doing in this exchange, this is a perfect way to do it, right? Fetch the data, ask the right questions, and then visualize that on a front end.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Exactly. You got it. Mhm. Yeah. So, um, in summary, uh, used ENVIO for the indexer, then deployed it to a hosted service, and then used create React app for the front end, and then fetch the data from the indexer. Um, and in case you missed anything, all this code is hosted on GitHub at Metis Workshop Live in case you want to copy any of it. And also, I should note that this endpoint is also live, public, in production, so it's going to be there. If you want to query this data for any reason or test something out, you can go ahead and use it as well.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to be adding this nice GitHub repository to our list of Metis 101, which I'm creating, in which we have a bunch of content, developer content created by the community on how to build things on Metis. I really appreciate it. And for the people that are watching right now in our audience, this is a good time to ask any questions. I think that you guys are also live on Discord. Is that correct, Josh?
I believe so. I don't have Discord open right now, so I can't confirm.
Okay, well, I guess that if there are any questions there as well, the team of ENVIO will make sure to send it your way, right?
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, feel free to bother us in Discord all you want. Yeah, please host this repo. I'll keep updating it. And yeah, I hope this was helpful for some people.
Yeah, I think that this is really good because it actually shows like the logic behind. Then of course there are a bunch of things like I mentioned before that you can build
Mhm.
using this. And maybe one final question for you, which is like, what is it like you have seen developers do the most with this kind of applications? Like in terms of applications, what would be like the most frequent one?
Um, we see, well, so the two types again, either a front end or some type of data analysis. We mostly see front ends for some type of like exchange or swap
Mm.
front ends, and then also a smaller amount with some data analysis front ends as well.
Got it, got it. I see here in the comments someone wrote, Sven, MU Discord. Yeah, I guess that you can paste the link to Discord there if people want to join. And if you have any questions for anything related building on Metis, We have a Telegram group as well. You can find it easily if you go to our website and check for the developer section. We will be doing more and more of these workshops, and also we will be doing some product demos so that you can get familiarized with the dapps that are being built on Metis. I would also 100% encourage you to follow ENVIO and the things that the guys are building here, because it's really exciting. I think it's a very powerful indexer. You guys were able to see this live today, and I'm looking forward to what's next, Josh. I don't know if
Yeah,
you want
me as
to
well.
leave us with some final words here.
No, I just really appreciate you having me on. Hopefully, we can do more of these. Love hearing about what Metis is up to and that powerful ecosystem.
Absolutely, absolutely. So excited about it. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you to our audience for tuning in. Let's make sure to stay connected. So subscribe to our channel, and I guess that I will see you on the next episode, on the next workshop. So bye bye, everyone. Take care and have a wonderful weekend.